Hello and welcome everybody to Dharma Punk Seattle. We're going to be getting so close to wrapping up the Eightfold Path. We're on the second to last here with wise mindfulness. And I think when it comes to Buddhist practice, this is what people think of. This is usually what people are gravitating towards, wanting to know about. They're wanting to know, what is mindfulness? How do I do some of that? It seems like it's okay. It seems like it's pretty cool. And there's been a lot of developments, and it's used in psychology, and all kinds of different strategies have been created over the since probably the 1960s to iterate on mindfulness. And when referring to the Eightfold Path, this is a specific type of mindfulness. Often mindfulness can be talked about as being a passive observer of thought. And that is a component of mindfulness, but it's a very low level of mindfulness. And the type of mindfulness that is taught in Buddhism has so much more to offer, so much more that, as I've stated again and again, that will help lead on this Eightfold Path to the end of suffering. And so that is the function of mindfulness. One of my favorite synonyms for mindfulness is to remember. Because, it's one thing to be able to be a detached observer to thought, but it's another thing to then also remember what comes next. Because just seeing it alone is, as maybe many of us have experienced in our own lives, in our own practice, and it's something that I've seen in my own life and practice, just seeing it alone is not always enough. Sometimes it is. Sometimes we, mindfulness, it's like Sauron's eye, and it just like catches it, and it's like, the thought runs away. But sometimes the thoughts are sticky, and they're resilient, and they push forward, and they're mean. And learning what the Buddha developed as the 4 foundations of mindfulness helps us take that mindfulness to its full potential, which is the 4 foundations of mindfulness being the mindfulness of the body. So that's, I'm not going to dive into them too much. I'm going to save that for the talk. Mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind itself, and then the 4th foundation, mindfulness of dhammas. So that is what, when we're talking about remembering, that's what we're talking about. We're recollecting the wisdom that we've already developed. So the question that I'm going to pose for today is going to pertain to I'm actually stealing this question from Noah. He did a talk recently, and I liked this question that he posed in his group, which was, he was talking about how someone was referring to the mind as like a radio, like it's just playing, and like you sit down, you're trying to be mindful of the breath, and K-fuck radio turns on, and it's just like you can't turn it off. And so the question that we could pose here is what song has your mind been playing recently? Have we been hearing a lot of the Smiths? Have we been listening to a lot of Ohio is for Lovers? Have we been listening to pop? You know, like what is the function, the radio station that the mind has been kind of up to lately? Bringing in that sort of mindfulness of the mind. So yeah, let's all get in a group together. And then if you're in the live stream, you can go ahead and meditate or journal on the topic. All right. Let's get ready to meditate, shall we? Find a comfortable way to sit. Get cozy. Arriving. For this next 30 minutes, doing our best to not intentionally plan or remember. Judge. Of course, we will find that despite making these intentions, the mind will continue to think all on its own. But that when we do, we gently come back to the object. And just begin by noticing where you feel the mind. Where the thoughts are coming from. And just taking note of that as we begin mindfulness of the body, body scan. Beginning with the top of the head. Bringing the attention to hair of the head. Each strand attached. The space between each strand of hair. Continuing to bring the attention down through the forehead and the eyebrows, to the eyes, the eyelashes, and the gelatinous nature of our eyeballs. Moving down the nose, feeling the breath moving in and out. Our mouth and lips, teeth with roots into our gums, saliva, our whole face, skin, resting on our skull. And reflecting on how so often we identify us as our face. This combination of skin, blood, and hair. And this is what we often identify as us. Continue bringing awareness down through the throat. Noticing the different dry and wet spots in the throat. Down to our shoulders, where we so often carry tension and stress. Down through our arms, elbow, wrist, joints connecting the different parts of the arm. Hands and fingernails. It's not uncommon for sometimes the monastics' first training of meditation is to reflect on their fingernails. Moving back into the torso, into the chest. Breast tissue. Rib cage, heart, lungs. So many potent forces of our life resting in this part of the body, that without their functioning, we couldn't exist. Continuing to drop the awareness into the lower part of the torso, stomach, soft belly. Intestines, bile, feces and urine. Genitalia and butt. Where the femur meets the pelvis. Our legs, the joints of the knees and ankles, skin, hair of the body. Each follicle, each pore, each vein, and the blood. And finally, moving down to the feet. Responsible for helping you stay upright, each bone, connected to the rest of the skeletal system. And this skeletal system layered with the nervous system. Much like mindfulness, it too remembers. Its functioning is to remember. To perceive threat, do you find the nervous system is the same or different than the mind? And seeing if you just open to the mind as an observer, if you can note true, untrue, with the things the mind is naturally producing. how many times have you decided something was true, but then with further investigation, maybe you found out it wasn't? How many times has your mind tried to sell you a truth that was a lie? As we come to the end of this meditation, letting go of this aspect of practice with the mind and returning back to the breath and the body. And when you hear the bell, allow your eyes to open and awareness to come back to your surroundings. Welcome back. So, as mentioned in the introduction, the mindfulness is broken up into 4 different sections. The first foundation of mindfulness starts with what they call mindfulness of the body. And there's several different practices that are lumped into that. So that can be mindfulness of the breath, which in the meditations I lead, I really try to place a strong emphasis on mindfulness of the breath. And I do this from my own personal experience of my tendency of the mind to want to ascend to the higher levels of mindfulness, and being dismissive that things like mindfulness of the breath is like, that's like for rookies. That's like rookie meditation and not important. That if, you know, I want the good shit. And the more that I have practiced mindfulness, the more that I've come to understand how important it is, not only on a foundational level, that without mindfulness of the breath, it's very difficult to, scaffold the rest of the mindfulness practice, but just as a place of where so much of the practice you can also just use the first foundation of mindfulness. When I'm helping new addicts in recovery, or one of the things that I continue to point them to is the first foundation of mindfulness. And I do this because people tend to want to intellectualize, right? This defense mechanism of, if I can outsmart the behavior, then I'll figure it out. But that kind of usually just gets us, stuck in the drain of thought until we're all stressed out, and then we, do the behavior that we were trying to get away from. And just being able to do the first foundation of mindfulness of, can I focus my attention on something else besides my mind? Can I, try my best to ignore? If I'm on mindfulness of the breath, can I just focus on the breath? If I'm doing a body scan, even if the mind is trying to pull me this way or that, can I just do the body scan? And how hard that is. It's so fucking hard. It's so fucking hard to stick with it. But such a useful practice when we're trying to refrain from engaging in certain aspects of the mind. When we've decided, I really don't want to, engage in this behavior anymore. I really want to, cut back on eating this type of food, or I want to, add more. I want to work out more. First foundation of mindfulness is so fundamental in being able to correct certain things in our lives. And the instruction that the Buddha gives on mindfulness of the breath, breathing in, know that you're breathing in, breathing out, know that you're breathing out. Such a simple concept. But, how often we take how many breaths a day? A gajillion breaths a day. Fact. And how many times do you know you're breathing in? How many times do you know you're breathing out? If we can't even know that we're breathing in or breathing out, how do we expect to be able to have the agility, the mental agility to suss out what the mind is up to. Because I don't know about y'all, but my mind is agile. And that being a major function of mindfulness. Going back to last week and other weeks of analogy that I've used. Last week I used the analogy of the 5 dictators in our mind village, referring to the 5 hindrances. And the place where mindfulness sits is kind of the guard, is the watchful lookout, to kind of see what's going on. It's our personal surveillance system to see what's happening. And as stated, things, aspects of mind like the 5 hindrances or are extremely agile. And so our mindfulness practice needs to be even more, even more. And, you know, this is a huge reason why there's such an emphasis on practicing every day. It's that repetition, it's building a muscle in the way that, you know, we would try to gain practice at any skill. It's 20 minutes is basic hygiene for mindfulness practice. Mo is better. More is better. So do with that what you will. And second foundation of mindfulness is where we start getting into, you know, the difference between mindfulness and wise mindfulness, right? Because there's just mindfulness, but there's the wise mindfulness used appropriately to as I stated again and again, to free ourselves from suffering. Is the mindfulness freeing us from suffering? You know, and I feel like sometimes we only take it that far. We only take it as far as first foundation or second foundation. We figure out, like, I like it, I don't like it, right? That's second foundation of mindfulness. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? Am I being driven to want more of it? Am I repelling and wanting to go away from it? This is the second foundation of mindfulness, is simply identifying, I like it, I don't like it. And that's often where people stop. We get to the point where, you know, we're just like, we see that, we're like, oh, there's that part, you know, there's this aspect of mind, I like it, I don't like it, and then we quit. And forget that there's more, that there's more room in our mindfulness practice to keep going. And using this as a stepladder, you know, like once I've identified, is it pleasant or unpleasant? Okay, I can take that a little bit further. If it's unpleasant, you know, let's say, you know, I get a text message with some ill-fated news, unpleasant. Then we can take it to the third foundation. What is this aversion pointing us to? Is resentment coming up? Really trying to take it and break it down into its pieces. And then, you know, again, we can know, like, maybe we're good at taking it that far. Maybe we're like, okay, cool, I figured out that I hate it, but I still just hate it. Then this is where we run into the fourth foundation of mindfulness. This is where like things start to hopefully make sense. Is in the fourth foundation of mindfulness, which they call mindfulness of Dhamma or mindfulness of the truth. And it can be a little bit like, well, how does Buddhism know that there's just like one truth that is like the truth? Does it make the suffering stop? That is what the truth is. In every scenario, whether it's like my dog died, or whether it's, I want to compulsively spend $1,000. There's one truth. And it's, how do I not suffer in both of those situations? And through the practice, that is, the scaffolding that we learn. And so the fourth foundation, I feel like can actually get a little bit tricky without some degree of study. I can say that so much of my own experience with the four foundations of mindfulness has worked so much better the more that I have studied and the more that I understand what tools are available to me. Even just being able to see things for what they are. So, there's always like, a bajillion lists within list. So within the fourth foundation of mindfulness, the things that we're looking out for is, we're looking out for the 5 hindrances. We're looking out for the 7 factors of awakening, and, trying to eliminate one, trying to increase the other. We're trying to look at aspects of mind through the 5 aggregates, so breaking them down into, am I making this personal? Am I making this about me? Or, what happens when I break this down into the 4 elements? Does that chocolate cake scream to me the same way it did when I just recognized it's just the 4 elements? Not so much. And so encountering, and you can identify what these lists are by studying the Satipatthana Sutta. It's not very long. I highly, highly recommend that you can literally Google it. It's free on the internet, the Satipatthana Sutta. And just get familiar with those lists. And I know I try my best to go over them again and again. But that is where, if we continue to find ourselves in the space of like, well, I'm aware, but now what? Like, I'm still suffering. I still hate this. I still, can't stop the craving. Try to bring ourselves to the next rung. Try to look at the Satipatthana Sutta and be like, okay, what, one of these things is gonna, like square peg, square hole. Like, I gotta figure out which one. And eventually, through repetition and practice, that becomes a lot more natural. But circling back to the beginning, where the synonym to mindfulness being remembering to return to those little things and not just stop, and that's something I emphasize that so much because it's something that I see in my own practice over and over again. A resentment will come up and I'll be like, oh, there's resentment, there's aversion, and then I just, stop. And like, it'll keep coming up in my brain, and then it'll take me like half a day to be like, oh yeah, that's suffering. Like there's something that I can do practically to relief, to gain relief. And as a final sort of reminder, this isn't going to bring the absence of pain. That's not part of this practice is eliminating pain. Pain is still very much with us. But all of that extra, what suffering is, greed, hatred, and delusion, craving, all of that, we can, through mindfulness, through the Eightfold Path, come to a space where we can begin becoming more agile than the mind. I just feel like that's, one of the fascinating parts about retreat practice is that I feel like I mentioned this maybe a few talks ago, but it's relevant in that one of the questions I asked at the monastery last year was, can there be a problem with awareness? Because sometimes when you get to meditating, and especially if your mindfulness increases, you begin to see actually how much is going on. Where in the beginning of my mindfulness practice, my net and the holes in my net were so wide that I was only kind of catching the big ticket items, and not really realizing how many other thoughts, how many other things were just getting through, because my mindfulness practice wasn't developed enough, and my understanding of the fourth foundation of mindfulness was still fairly limited. And that through more and more practice, the holes in the net become smaller and smaller, that I can catch more. And so one of the things that, returning to the question with the monk, is, can there be a problem with awareness? I would feel like sometimes I sit down and I'm like catching so fucking much. It's exhausting, to be on retreat now and to be able to catch as much as I can. And to recognize that that's not because of a function of the retreat, that's not a function of that specific meditation. That's just what the mind is doing all the time. Every 0.2 seconds, it's just fucking rapid firing. And most of the time, my mindfulness watchtower is not adept enough to see it. And then I'm stressed and I'm pissed and I'm broken and I'm hungry and and I don't fucking know why. And so the function of mindfulness to increase our watcher, to be able to see more and to be able to do more about it too, not just see it. So I'll end there. If there are any questions or thoughts that would like to be shared here. Crystal clear? Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. And as usual, we'll end with a Dana statement. So all Buddhist teachings are offered freely. If you would like to donate so we can pay some rent, that would be delightful. $5 to $10 suggested donation. You can Venmo me. You can throw some cash in the bowl. We'll take a beat, and then we'll dedicate some merit. All right. if you'd like to dedicate the merit. May any goodness that came from practice today be spread above and below to the seen and the unseen, to those being born and to those who are dying. Thank you.